The story says that Theseus left the port of Athens on his ship, A. During his travels, Theseus systematically replaced every part of his ship with a new part, discarding the old pieces overboard. Another boat, the Scavenger, followed Theseus and fished out all the discarded pieces to gradually and systematically rebuild his own boat. At the end of his journey, Theseus returned to the port of Athens on his boat B, now entirely made out of new parts. In turn, the Scavenger docked his own ship, C, now composed of all the physical parts of Theseus's original boat, A. Which begs the question, which boat, B or C, is more authentic in relation to A? As Mark Cohen puts it, our problem is to sort out the identity and non-identity relations among A, B, and C. The only obvious fact is that B is different from C. After all, they are berthed side by side in the harbor, so they can hardly be one and the same ship. Beyond that, there are two alternatives. The first position follows the mereological theory of identity, MTI, stating that the identity of an object depends on the identity of its component parts. According to this logic, A equals C, given every physical part of A is equal to every physical part of C. The second position follows the logic of spatiotemporal continuity, STC, stating that a persisting object must trace a continuous path through spacetime, and tracing a continuous path is compatible with a change of parts so long as the change is gradual and the form or shape of the object is preserved through the changes of its component materials. According to this logic, A and C are two different ships, even though their physical parts are the same. This position argues that A and B are the same ship, even though they have no physical parts in common. (2009) The UNESCO World Heritage List is made up of 890 natural and cultural sites, including the Old and New Towns of Edinburgh Cultural Site, inscribed in 1995. Authenticity is defined in World Heritage as the essential qualifying factor concerning values. The understanding of authenticity plays a fundamental role in all scientific studies of cultural heritage. Once a site is included on the World Heritage List, it is expected that its values and conditions of inscription will be maintained on a permanent basis. Therefore, the evaluation document upon which the designation of a World Heritage Site is based is important as a basic reference. Herb Stovall explains that World Heritage authenticity is not a value in its own right. The continuing authenticity of a World Heritage Site is assessed in relation to the particular outstanding universal value defined in its World Heritage inscription. At the time of Edinburgh's inscription, UNESCO's operational guidelines on authenticity focused predominantly on tangible attributes of form and design, materials, workmanship, and setting. Since 2005, intangible and dynamic attributes have been integrated into those guidelines, including an awareness of and respect for dominant and recessive histories and values, intangible perceptual qualities, and dynamic functional characteristics. 15 years on from its inscription, the Edinburgh World Heritage Site has yet to acquire a statement of authenticity, which provides a framework for future reference regarding its values. Two elements of World Heritage policy are key in this instance. 1. That the authenticity of a place cannot be defined in hindsight. It must be defined at this point in time. 2. That a re-evaluation of a World Heritage Site's inscription may become necessary either due to the substantive revision of the criteria by the World Heritage Committee or due to better identification or knowledge of specific outstanding universal value of the property. World Heritage Precedent. Abu Simbel. Foundations of World Heritage can be found in the 1959 Campaign to Save the Monuments of Nubia in Egypt. The campaign was initiated in reaction to plans to build the Aswan High Dam, which would in turn flood the Nile Valley and cause the submersion of a number of priceless ancient monuments. Described today by UNESCO as a complete and spectacular success, which inspired the development and adoption in 1972 of UNESCO's World Heritage Convention, the campaign offers an insight into the meaning of authenticity in World Heritage. The campaign involved the relocation of a number of important temples to higher ground, including the temples at Abu Simbel, dedicated to Ramses II and Nefertari. Originally carved out of the living rock in the 13th century before Christ, the temples were disassembled and reconstructed in the 1960s into artificial hills made of reinforced concrete domes, 200 meters away from the temple's original locations. The temples were inscribed onto the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1979. One may follow the Mariological theory of identity in arguing the at least partial material authenticity of the relocated temples. But a more important point in relation to World Heritage lies in the question, authentic in relation to what? It was made clear at Abu Simbel in its 1979 World Heritage inscription that it is the memory of the place, not its intact fabric or setting, which is recognized by UNESCO as having been retained to this day at Abu Simbel and as being worth preserving in the context of World Heritage. Warsaw. Warsaw is another popular example of the authenticity conundrum. Despite the fact that official UNESCO documentation states that at Warsaw the criterion of authenticity may not be applied in its stricter sense, it is in fact clear that the justification for Warsaw's inscription specifically relates to the reconstruction of a sequence of history rather than original material and context. Although the World Heritage Committee stated at the time of Warsaw's inscription that there could be no question of inscribing in the future other cultural properties that have been reconstructed, the case of the Bridge of Mostar provides another example of a site recognized by World Heritage for its community's reconstruction efforts following 1993 wartime destruction. Zekazulverein. The Zekazulverein coal mining complex was inscribed in 2001 partly on the basis of a master plan by OMA, which had yet to be carried out, and which was prospectively found to preserve and promote the functional authenticity of the site. Rem Koolhaas, architect of the master plan, explains that the interval between the object and the moment of its preservation has decreased from about 2 millennia in 1882 to mere decades today. Soon, the interval will disappear. In a radical shift from the retrospective to the prospective, we will then have to decide what to preserve before we build. Those are examples of World Heritage sites where intangible, not just physical, matter such as self-referential cultural values and concepts and modern functional adaptations have explicitly driven the justification for inscription onto the World Heritage List and will henceforth serve as reference for future evaluations of authenticity at those sites. Edinburgh. The historical point in time of 1995 inscription has become Edinburgh's patrimonial mirror, through which subsequent change is assessed. In a shift from the descriptive to the prescriptive, the Edinburgh World Heritage Site is now behind the looking glass.
Criterion 2. The successive planned expansions of the new town and the high quality of its architecture set standards for Scotland and beyond, and exerted a major influence on the development of urban architecture and town planning throughout Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries. Criterion 4. The old and new towns together form a dramatic reflection of significant changes in European urban planning, from the inward-looking defensive wall medieval city of royal palaces, abbeys, and organically developed small burgage plots in the old town, through the expansive format Enlightenment planning of the 18th and 19th centuries in the new town, to the 19th century rediscovery and revival of the old town with its adaptation of the distinctive baronial style of architecture in an urban setting.